Hello, BookTube. Believe it or not, I have some new books we can go through together. How long has that been? We don't get nearly as many. We used to get 10 a day. It was so much fun. Nothing can be helped. It can't be helped. No use crying over spilt milk. But I do have a small pile of new books to look at here, so we'll go through them together. No idea, once again, about pub days. You're on your own about that, and so am I. We just all have to get into the habit of checking pub dates and double checking them because the posted dates might be wrong. Not that it matters anyway, because we can't go to bookstores. But in terms of, let's say, for instance, you have an outlet that wants to send you a printed book. Don't get your hopes up for one of these things until you've double checked the date. So I have one package and then a bunch of other books, a bunch of books that aren't in a package. Let's open the package first. I know it's one of these big pressed things, so I know it's from a publisher. Let's see what this is. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my. Okay. Wow. Okay, so this is dated for mid-August. So that's good still happen. Wow. Okay. Boy, I need to send a copy of this to somebody right away, and I can't do it because I'm not going to... Okay, well, I'll figure it out. This is by Thomas Schwartz, and it is Henry Kissinger and American Power, a political biography. Fairly hefty-sized thing. So let us see. There was a time in the 1970s when Henry Kissinger was consistently one of the most popular public figures in America. The former Harvard professor and celebrity diplomat's role in opening up relations with China, his part in détente between the United States and the Soviet Union, his negotiations toward an end to the Vietnam War, and his, quote, shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East all earned him the approval of a large swath of the American public. Not this part, but I'm not a large swath. Of course, over time, Kissinger has also been a deeply controversial figure. The part that he played in the covert bombing of Cambodia and his connections to the overthrow of the duly elected Allende government in Chile, in particular, have earned him widespread opprobrium. The late Christopher Hitchens considered Kissinger a war criminal. Senator Bernie Sanders has called him, quote, one of the most destructive secretaries of state in the modern history of our country. In this book, the author takes an in-depth and even-keeled approach to Kissinger's fascinating career and complex legacy. Okay, even-keeled. Might be a giveaway here. The first thing that you want to do when you get a book like this, the very first thing that I want to do, that David Murphy will want to do when I somehow get him a copy of this book, the very first thing that you want to do with a book like this, before you've read the introduction, before you've read the preface, before you've read anything, is to go to the acknowledgments section now. In this advanced copy, they might not be there yet, but in the finished copy, the very first thing you want to do is ascertain whether or not Henry Kissinger helped with this book. Did this author have access to his archives? Did this author interview him? Did this author have any personal contact with him whatsoever? If the author did, the book's even-keeledness goes out the window. Out the window. Remember Neil Ferguson. Remember the gigantic ongoing biography of Kissinger that he's writing. A disgrace of hagiography. Because Kissinger is involved. There is no such thing. What were the words again? There is no such thing as an in-depth and even-keeled approach to Kissinger if Kissinger is involved. So that's the very first thing you have to look at. There might still be a whole bunch of other things there will still be a whole bunch of other things to read this for and to write about. This is going to get reviewed absolutely everywhere in August and September. Absolutely everywhere. Nevertheless, the one thing you can't read it for, if Kissinger was involved, is even-keeled objectivity. That goes out the window. Because he won't do it under those circumstances. He is 100 million years old, and yet he is not one of those people, like, for instance, the Queen of England, who will say to a researcher, here are the archives, I am not interested in what conclusions you come to. There are plenty of public figures who are that way, and there are plenty of public figures who aren't. And Kissinger is one of the ones who isn't. But anyway, let's Schwartz brings us back to Kissinger's dramatic youth. He grew up as a Jew from small Bavarian city whose family escaped Hitler's Germany in 1938. And he also outlines, the author, also outlines the 96-year-old Kissinger's continued relevance and influence in more recent years, as well as the ongoing debates over his record. But the bulk of the author's studious biography is devoted to Kissinger's years in government, when he was at the peak of his influence as National Security Advisor and then Secretary of State for the Nixon and Ford administrations. Through the author's authoritative narrative, we get a vivid portrait of the inner workings of the American foreign policy making in the 1970s, as well as the backbiting and intrigue within Richard Nixon's orbit. As the Nixon administration became consumed by Watergate, Schwartz shows how Kissinger's clout and independence only grew. The author also paints a fascinating portrait of Kissinger as an exceedingly multifaceted personality, someone who was all at once brilliant, arrogant, charming, insecure, and even paranoid, as well as his sophisticated understanding and savvy dealings with the news media. As part of his research, Schwartz drew heavily on Vanderbilt's remarkable television news archive, the most extensive collection of TV news recordings in the world. Schwartz also demonstrates that for Kissinger, who liked to portray himself as nonpartisan and above the fray, foreign policy and domestic politics were actually always part of the same conversation. The author is an esteemed historian who has served in the U.S. State Department's Historical Advisory Committee and author of 2 previous books, Lyndon Johnson in Europe and America's Germany. And with this book, he gives this towering figure of American diplomatic history the careful, incisive work of biography and analysis that he deserves. I'm just assuming that the acknowledgments are not here. Now I'm dying to know. Oh, no, they are here. Oh, my God. They are here. This book has taken a very long time to write, and consequently I have many people to thank. I live in fear that I will forget to mention someone, and I want to make a preemptive plea for forgiveness. Many of the names here deserve further descriptions of their contributions to this book, but that will have to wait until I can inscribe their copies. Okay, I love that tone. I'm already liking this author, and that's very dangerous. Okay. Vanderbilt University, okay. And their film archive. Yes, that's great. Okay. The Gerald Ford Presidential Library provided me with financial assistance to visit their archives. Okay, that's bad. That's a bad note. You have to watch out for this sort of stuff. Ford himself was upstanding, but anything connected with money and anything connected with Nixon, they cast very, very long shadows. They have been warping the fabric of history since Nixon was in power. He's one of those nodules of just absolute radiating evil that is effective long after the actual person is roasting in hell. This is very long. This has gone for a long time, so I don't know. I can't go through this whole thing on camera. I just wonder. I wonder if at some point in any of this, okay, extraordinary group of able Vanderbilt research assistants. Okay, very good. I benefited enormously from graduate students with whom I have worked at Vanderbilt. I've also had the good fortune to work with graduate students from other universities. There have been many outstanding Vanderbilt students who've asked great questions about Henry Kissinger. Okay. Over the years, I have probably bored to death my friends with Kissinger stories, and they have been kind enough to listen. George Payne, Art Jacobs, Austin Triggs, Peter Brush, Donna Johnson. Okay, all right. His friends have listened to his stories. I owe very special thanks to my dear friend Marie Keeler, who has always believed in me even when I had my doubts. Okay, all right. Great sadness that I remember those who did not live to see me finish this book. Okay, well, that paragraph excuses Kissinger because he's still alive. My extended family has always been there for me, and this book is dedicated to my 3 daughters. Okay, it looks to me, just on a surface brush through here, that he does not thank Henry Kissinger, which would be really good. The Ford Library helped financially underwrite this, and that's tricky because the Ford administration is being studied in this book. It presents to me an obvious conflict of interest, but we shall see. We shall see. It might not be. For all I know, the Ford Library was as ecumenical as Ford himself. When he was alive, Ford himself would certainly have said, if this author had approached him, go ahead and write whatever you want. And if you need my foundation's financial subscription from my financial foundation, apply through normal channels the way everyone else. We'll view your project on the merits, but we certainly won't impose an ideological spectrum on you. You can write whatever you want. Maybe the library is the same way as its namesake. One way or another, oh my, the one book I got in the mail is going to tempt me to read it right away. And the reason why, obviously, those of you who are new to this channel might be wondering why a moltenly sexy 28-year-old would be so interested in Henry Kissinger and the Nixon and Ford administrations. And that's because, let's just say my great-grandfather was deeply interested in the Nixon and Ford administrations, especially the Nixon administration as it was unfolding, wrote editorials, read every newspaper, consulted every news briefing, has read every book on the subject, an incredibly pivotal subject in American history. And for 50 years, an easy answer to the worst president in U.S. history. An easy answer. That question now has a new answer. But for 50 years, it was one guy, and the presidency changed hands a lot in that time. That distant figure in my family tree was interested in these things, and that figure has passed that interest on to me. That's how that works. But then we have other books here. I'm going to end there. There are 4 more books here, and 3 are of a type. I'm going to end with them because we're going to end with dessert. We're going to end with the sweets. So we're going to start with this next one, which is a debut, a fiction debut, and you know I love those. This is by Brian Castleberry, and it's called 9 Shiny Objects. I don't have a pub sheet, so we're just going to read this right off the book. June 26, 1947. Headlines across America report that an aviator from Idaho witnessed 9 pulsing lights flying over the Cascade Mountains at speeds surpassing those of any aircraft built by humankind. Days later, a desperate Chicago pool hustler, inspired by the news, hitchhikes west in a fever dream search for possible extraterrestrial sign. From those he inspires along the way to the Cascades comes a new community, the Seekers, devoted to creating a society where divisions of race, ethnicity, and sexuality are all things of the past. 9 shiny objects. Believing that a utopia will begin in a community of their own creation, the Seekers attempt to settle in the suburbs of Long Island. One night, a stranger arrives and a horrific crime ensues. In the decades that follow, the perpetrators, survivors, and their children will be forced to face the consequences of what happened. Like an eroding Atlantic seashore, a Cascade Mountain snowflake, and the branching crimson streaks in bloodshot eyes. Okay, those similes went off the rails pretty easy. 9 Shiny Objects is a fractal, a novel of intimate reveries that replicates to form a larger portrait of America's cleaved soul, the perpetual clash between the optimism of those who seek inspiration from spacious skies and the venom of others who relish the underworld via not only conspiratorial maneuverings, but the literal unearthings of the dead. Okay, now I'm wondering if I should put this thing in the freezer for a while. Do I need to disinfect this? Is it actually alive? I don't know. And let's see here. It has a blurb by William Finnegan, who did Barbarian Days, which is a work of nonfiction that I strongly recommend to you. It is really, really good. And that's great that it has a blurb. It also has a blurb from Jenny Awful, which kind of equals out. So we can say that it has no blurbs at all. And the author, let's see, his stories have been published in the Southern Review, One Day, Narrative, and other literary journals. And he now lives in Virginia, where he teaches literature and creative writing at the College of William and Mary. Okay, that's a fantastic berth that he's got there. Great. Okay, so this is dated for June. For late June, which is right on the cusp there. If something's dated for October, I can be fairly certain that it will come out, right? Can we hope for that anyway? Can we hope that Kissinger and American Power comes out as a hardcover in bookstores that are opened again in October? Oh my God, my heart would break if I thought that wasn't the case. But I don't know about June 20th. I don't know. I don't know how that would work. I guess maybe June 20th, if we're all wearing masks and we're not in for long and there's no cafe and all the cashiers are wearing masks, that might work. I think that might work now. But I don't know. I don't know one way or another. We'll have to watch and see. We'll watch together. But that is fantastic. That sounds great. And also, in the back of my mind, tickling the back of my mind, I think there are some real world, actual story echoes there that I'll have to dig into it and see. I'm not going to read this just yet. It's late June. I've still got a lot of May stuff to do, all of May to do. So I won't read it yet, but it's on my radar. So we have a work of American history of a very pertinent nature. This is not one of the few periods in American history where I don't know a lot or I'm not all that interested. This is right up my alley. I am intensely interested in this period and these people and any new history. of this period and these people. Intensely interested. And I love debut fiction. Absolutely love it. No deadweight, no baggage, no high expectations to fulfill. No, nothing. It's a blank slate. This author's a perfect example. He has written only in really good literary journals that I and nobody else ever reads. So he's never published in the New Yorker, nor anything like that. So he is completely new to me. And this book will I will get the wonderful experience of seeing what you have to offer. That's such a great feeling with a first-time author. Okay, I don't know anything about you. The world is yours. Tell me what you have to author. If you are a new historian or a new biographer, you've never written a nonfiction work before, I've read nothing by you, okay, let's see what you do with your sources. Let's see how your prose sits on the page. I'm all eager. I'm eager to see what you will do. I'm eager to add a new author to all the authors that I already read, especially one that I might like. And same thing with fiction. In fact, maybe grudgingly more with fiction, because the possibilities are limitless. You can't write a World War II history in which the Allies lose. But in fiction, anything can happen. And when I get a debut novel, oh my, then I'm thinking, all right, I have read 80 million novels. So let's see what you do. Let's see what you do. I am all on your side. I want to love you. I want to say, okay, here is a debut novel by someone that I am going to follow for the rest of their career. I want to say that. I want to add another person like that to my reading. So I'm all for it. So these two, great. And then the last three new books that we'll look at here, one is for May. Yeah, one is for May, and the other two are for late July. So we might see these things. Let's do the May one first. These are all romances. So if you're not interested in romance, you can turn off now. These are all romances coming out. The first one is First Comes Scandal by Julia Quinn. And this is a Bridgerton prequel. Because for Bridgerton books, I have quite a few of them here. I could almost reach out and grab one. I have quite a few of the Bridgerton books here. They're very, very good. And this is a prequel because the Bridgerton books have been popular. Fans have really liked them. So let's read a little about it. Again, no pub sheet. Georgiana Bridgerton isn't against the idea of marriage. She just thought she'd have some say in the matter. But with her reputation hanging by a thread after she's abducted for her dowry, Georgie is given two options: live out her days as a spinster or marry the rogue who has ruined her life. As the fourth son of an earl, Nicholas Rokesby is prepared to chart his own course. He has established himself in Edinburgh, where he is close to completing his medical studies, and he has no time or interest to find a wife. But when he discovers that Georgie Bridgerton, his literal girl next door, is facing ruin, he knows what he must do. It might not have been the most romantic of proposals, but Nicholas never thought she'd say no. Georgie doesn't want to be anyone's sacrifice, and besides, they could never think of each other as anything more than childhood friends. Or could they? But as they embark upon the unorthodox courtship, they discover a new twist to an age-old rhyme. First comes scandal, then comes marriage, and after that comes love. Now, some of that sounds predictable, but I have learned through the Bridgerton novels, and in addition to quite a bit else, to love this author. She can do no wrong. She knows exactly what she's doing. So this will be read long before its alleged publication date. The date is May 20th. Who knows what will be true in May 20th, by May 20th. A lot of communities that I know, a lot of governors and mayors are considering extending their quarantine lockdowns throughout the month of May. There are a lot of places now, states and municipalities are eyeing June. And that's a little depressing because we can all remember when they were eyeing April. So I don't know. But this is a Bridgerton book of any kind by Julia Quinn. Oh my, that is just a source of joy. And if you don't believe me, tootle on over to Sarah's channel at Steeped in Books, and you will get a second opinion on the subject. Sarah and I don't agree on everything, but I off the top of my head, I'm not immediately remembering what she said about Julia Quinn, but I know that if she's read her, she likes her. I know that. So, and when it comes to romance authorities on BookTube, do you need anything more than Sarah or me or both of us together if we both agree on an author? But anyway, the next two are for late July. So I have no idea if they'll come out then. But the first one is, this is a Bare Knuckle Bastards book. This is book 3. I think I have one of these. It's so frustrating because I'm looking right at my romance. See, this is my romance bookcase right there. So every time I get a romance in the mail, I'm looking straight at that bookcase and wondering if I can grab something right away, but I can't. And this is Sarah MacLean. This is Daring and the Duke. Photo cover. And the third book in the series. I know I've read at least one of these. But anyway, what have we got here? Grace Condry has spent a lifetime running from her past. Betrayed as a child by her only love and raised on the streets, she now hides in plain sight as queen of London's darkest corners. Grace has a sharp mind and a powerful right hook and has never met an enemy she could not best until the man she once loved returns. Single-minded and ruthless, Ewan, Duke of Marwick, has spent a decade searching for the woman he never stopped loving. A long-ago gamble may have lost her forever, but Ewan will go to any length to win Grace back and make her his duchess. Reconciliation is the last thing Grace desires. Unable to forgive the past, she vows to take her revenge. But revenge requires keeping Ewan close, and soon her enemies seem to be something else altogether, something she can't resist, even as he threatens the world she's built, the life she's claimed, and the heart she's vowed no one will steal again. So very similar in template. We have, in both cases, just by random chance, these heroines have a lifelong knowledge of the man who will eventually become the apple of their eye again. That's kind of interesting. Not all romances work along those lines. It's going to make, those of you who aren't romance fans, it's going to make romance look absolutely terrible if this third and final book does the same thing. They don't all do that. But the number one snobbish complaint that most non-romance readers have is that they're all alike. If you've read one, you've read them all. And if all three of these have that same basic plot gimmick, oh my. But anyway, let's see if that's true. So this next one is About a Rogue by Carolyn Linden. This is another photo cover. Not all that happy about photo covers. All three of these basically are photo covers, but that's all right. This is also due in late July. This is by Carolyn Linden, About a Rogue. And let's see what we have here. Bianca Tate is horrified when her sister Kathy is obliged to accept an offer of marriage from Maximilian St. James, notorious rake. Defiantly, she helps Kathy elope with her true love and takes her sister's place at the altar. I love it. I love it. Perched on the lowest branch of his family tree, Max has relied on charm and cunning to survive, but an unexpected stroke of luck gives him an outside chance at a dukedom. And which Tate sister he weds hardly seems to matter. So once again, we have a younger son. We have a distant. And in the first book, we had a fourth son of a duke. You know he's going to inherit. Somehow he's going to inherit. A carriage will go off the road with his brothers in it. But this is the same thing. This character is distant to a dukedom, but might inherit it. Married or not, Bianca is determined to protect her family's prosperous ceramics business, even when Max shows an affinity for it. Not to mention a dangerous ability to intrigue and tempt Bianca herself. And when Max realizes how beautiful and intelligent and desirable Bianca is, he'll have to prove he's no rogue, but the passionately devoted husband she craves. Oh, wow. All right, so lots of echoes in all three of these, and really good ones, too, because these are all gimmicks that romances can do that just delight me, provided they're done well. I don't think I've ever read Carolyn Linden. I'm racking my brains now to tell whether or not Sarah has ever read or mentioned Carolyn Linden. I'll leave a link to Sarah's channel down below, just in case you're interested in romance and haven't found her channel. That's just insane. She's the queen of booktube romance, but if you haven't, you're going to love her channel. I maintain that if you have a slightly open mind, you're going to love her channel anyway, because she, at least if you like this channel, you will, because she does booktube exactly the way I do, only with slightly more editing and enormous cats instead of a beautiful dog, where she just talks to the camera. She's just enthusiastically talking about books with you. That's all. And it's delightful. Absolutely delightful. I admit I'm a little bit biased because I love romance, and that's a large part of what she talks about on camera. But still, I don't remember if she has ever talked about either one of these authors. I'm fairly certain that she's talked about Julia Quinn. What romance reader doesn't love Julia Quinn? I don't know of one. But one way or another, I'll leave a link to her channel. So there you go. That was new books. We got new books to talk about. Who knows if it'll happen again? But I can't help but notice it's Wednesday and we've had new mail. We've had new stuff to talk about every day this week. It's a trickle. It's only a tiny fraction of what it once was, but that's still encouraging to me. So we'll do a Steve pile, won't we? So we have nine Shiny Objects by Brian Castleberry, his fiction debut, which is Fractal. Then we have Henry Kissinger and American Power, a big volume promised in a few months' time about that promises to be objective and even-keeled about Henry Kissinger, a thing that is almost impossible for historians and biographers to do. We'll see. We'll see if this one can do it. If the pub sheet mentions Christopher Hitchens, I wonder if the book does, because the Hitchens screed that is being referenced there is The Trial of Henry Kissinger, which is a 100-page book that, if you're interested in American history, you really ought to read it. You ought to find a copy and read it. And then we have 3 romances. So we have First Comes Scandal, a Bridgerton book, a Bridgerton sequel by Julia Quinn. We have Daring and the Duke by Sarah MacLean. And we have Carolyn Linden's About a Rogue. So there you go. It's a Steve pile. A small one, a modest one, but I'll take it. I'll absolutely take it. So who knows? Maybe we'll get mail tomorrow. If I do, as I always say, you'll be the first to know. So I'll wrap this up, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.